Henry VII Marriott Edgar Henry VII of England wasn't out of the royal top drawer, the only connection of which he could boast. He were King's nephew's brother-in-law. It were after the Wars of the Roses that he came to the front, as it were, when on strength of his having slain Richard III he put himself up as his heir. 'Twere a bit of a blow to the barons when Henry aspired to the throne, and some who'd been nursing imperial hopes started pushing out claims of their own. But they didn't get far with their scheming, for the moment the matter were pressed a stroke of the pen took them off to the Tower, where a stroke of the axe did the rest. A feller they called Perkin Warbeck was the one who led Henry a dance. To make sure that no awkward should happen to him he worked from an office in France. He claimed to be one of the princesses were smothered to death in the Tower. His tale was that only his brother was killed and that he had escaped the siege hour. Henry knew the appeal of the princes was a strong one for Perkin to make, and he reckoned he'd best have a chat with the lad and find out the least he would take. In reply to his kind invitation Perkin said he'd be happy to call, but he'd bring his own escort of 10,000 men and 100 pipers and all. This reply put the king in a passion. He swore as he'd stop Perkin's fun, then he offered a fortune per annum to him as could tell him how his could be done. Then up spoke the bold Lambert Sim, the king's private scullion he said, "Amperson quo. Just one word in thy ear, O king, I've a plan as will stop all this 'ere. Amperson quo." Then he took the king up in a corner, where no one could hear what they said. He hadn't got far when King started to laugh, and he laughed till he had to. He bled. 'Twere a plan to anticipate Perkin, by getting in first with these tales, start another rebellion before he arrived and take the wind out of his sails. And so Lambert Simnel's rebellion made its fateful debut in the north. Experts disagree who he made out to be, John II or Richard IV. 'Twas surprising how many believed him. They flocked to his flag like one man, for in them days the folk would do out for a change, and their motto was, "Amperson quo. San Ferian. Amperson quo." It were quite a success this rebellion till 'twere rooted by Henry at stock, and Lambert were taken and made to confess that his parents was working-class folk. The public forgave this deception. The thing that made them proper mad was the twopenny increase on everyone's rates to pay for the fun they had had. And so when Peter Warbeck came over expecting his praise to be sung, he was greeted, defeated, esceted, unseated, maltreated and finally hung. And the baron went back to his castle, the peasant went back to his herd, Lambert Simnel went back to his scullion's job because Henry went back on his word.